Hello. Today we're going to be doing lesson 5.5-5 from the Water and Land Use unit. We're going to be talking about topic 5.14, Integrated Pest Management, and 5.15, Sustainable Agriculture. 5.14, basically the concepts we're going to be covering is being able to describe what IPM means and being able to describe the benefits and drawbacks of integrated pest management. The basics of integrated pest management is you use a variety of pest control methods to minimize environmental disruption and pesticide use. You research and monitor pest and targeting methods. In other words, you go out into the field and you actually look in the field to see what's going on in the field. You also, in the laboratory, you identify, you look at all the weather conditions, and you keep records of what's been happening throughout the years. Use biocontrol. In other words, instead of using pesticides, you use ladybugs or praying mantis or a parasite of that particular insect or whatever to control the pest. Or you rotate crops because if it's the pest is particular for corn, it will not be present on cotton or soybeans. And so by rotating crops, going 1 year soybeans, 1 year corn, it's going to change, and therefore the pest will not be able to survive. You also can do intercropping, where you do like 10 rows of soybeans, 10 rows of corn, and therefore it confuses the pests. You can use biocontrol. Biocontrol is using a natural predator to control the pest. You can do that by purchasing them and then spreading them throughout your field, or building homes for them so that they will be able to survive there. So, for example, you can use a ladybug. You can use other spiders. You can use parasitic wasps that will destroy them and have them for lunch. Crop rotation. Many pests prefer one type or crop family. For example, soybeans and other bean families. They will lay the eggs, and then when the larvae age, they'll have a food source. But if you rotate the crops, it won't be available. So if you do the crops different each year, this can prevent the pest from being able to establish themselves in that field and grow faster and faster and faster, more amounts each year because more are laid. So you go from maybe wheat 1 year to soybeans to corn and keep on rotating. It also disrupts the weeds because they are not able to survive with various different types of crops. Intercropping means you put one crop in one row, one set of rows, and then you put other rows of something else. Now that's very good for corn, which really sucks up on the nitrogen, but therefore you would put soybeans or something else out to the side. By putting them in, it will put the nutrients in that they will need. That's the push ones. The soybeans will push the nutrients out. The corn will pull it into themselves. They can also emit chemicals that will lay the eggs instead of so that it pulls it away from them. It can provide habitat, or the pollen plants can emit chemicals that are natural pests. And so you put the soybeans out here for the nitrogen, the corn in here, and then in here you put other plants that will get rid of the pests. Benefits of it reduces the mutation and death of your species. For example, getting rid of frogs, or you don't want to get rid of the frogs, you don't want to get rid of eagles, you don't want bees to die off, and so you don't want to use chemicals like DDT, Roundup, or others that are going to kill ones you don't want to kill. It reduces effects on humans. Some chemicals like Roundup are carcinogens, or they prevent sperm production. Reduces contamination of surface water, and therefore it doesn't go out into the ocean. The drawbacks, it can be time consuming and cost more. Uh, uh, for example, having to research for whatever pest you have, what species do I need to bring in? So what would be an FIQ? Can you justify whether or not these uh, these data support the use of biocontrol methods? 5.15, sustainable agriculture. In here, you have to be able to describe what that means for agriculture and food production. Basically what that means. So for soil conservation, you want to apply agricultural methods that minimize erosion. That way you don't lose topsoil, you maintain the soil moisture, you make sure that you have decomposers in the O layer so that the organic material like the leaves or the stems of the branches is able to break down into the nutrients. Make sure that the organic material traps the soil moisture. So contour plowing basically means that you have, if the hill is down here, you want to go counter to the hill. So you want it perpendicular to the incline of the hill. So you'd have the hill right here, and you contour means you go this way, means that it'll keep the water from going off. Terracing is where you've got really bad hills. You actually see this in La Cañada, where we've got mountains here, and we've got terraces for each one. Basically, most of your homes are on terraces, where you've got flat areas here where you build a home, and then between each one of the homes, it goes down a little bit, and then a new set of homes, and down a little bit. Well, this started in basically a lot in South America, in Peru and stuff like that, where they built this because they were building on mountains and they wanted to build the crops. Sometimes you want to use perennial crops that live year round. They're harvested multiple times, but they're live year long. That's what a perennial means. They live longer, they have established roots that will prevent the soil from running away. And so, for example, if you use something like corn, during the winter, you can lose the soil. However, these, where they grow every single year, it will keep it from losing the soil. You want to have windbreaks so that the wind will not be able to pick up the soil. Advantage of this is by using the trees, it blocks the force of the wind from eroding the topsoil. It can also be used as fruit or firewood. So you have along the outside of the field, you have fruit trees that you can sell the fruit for or use it at home. And in here you have the crop that and the soil that you're not going to be losing. No-till means you're basically never going to till it. It's always going to have an organic layer. You leave leftover crops in the soil instead of tilling it over. It adds organic material, leaves it there, leaves the soil there. It prevents erosion from the loosened soil. Strip farming is another name for intercropping. What that means is you do one row of corn, one set of rows of corn, one set of rows of soybeans. You will use dense crops like hay and wheat in one set of rows that are able to hold the soil down, and then something that in between them that makes more money, but that way you don't have as much runoff. You can improve soil fertility by crop rotation, where basically you want to monitor the nutrient levels such as the nitrogen, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, and use some crops that replace them, because some crops are going to remove them. For example, corn really uses up the nitrogen, and so you're going to use a crop such as soybeans that has nitrogen fixation so that it is able to use it and give it to the other. Crop rotation is basically, you don't want to do it because by using the same crops, it depletes the soil. It allows the soil to recover, and then it adds more soil back. For example, the peas, beans, which are known as legumes, have nitrogen-fixing bacteria, which returns the nitrogen to the soil. We can also use green manure, basically where you have leftover plant material from a cover crop, such as you use from wheat, where you just use the top of the wheat. Well, the rest of it you can use and spread it out. Or you can use cover crops to stabilize the soil. You can also use remains of cover crops between times to release nutrients back into the soil. Sometimes you want to add limestone. What you use limestone for is to bring the pH back to where you need it. It releases calcium carbonate, which is a base, which takes the soil from being acidic down to being neutral. Now, remember that each crop may like the pH slightly different. Why? Because the different pHs lets different nutrients come out. So acidic soil has a high pH, high hydrogen concentration, which charges nutrients from the soil, leaches them out. It also makes chemicals such as aluminum more toxic, and so you don't want that. And so again, certain crops are able to act better down like at 4, whereas anything higher kills them. We also use calcium because it's needed as a plant nutrient. So limestone is good because it neutralizes the pH and it adds calcium, which is needed by the crops. You want to rotate grazing. For example, one time for a certain number of months, you may want to put cattle in a field, and then move them to another field and put pigs or sheep or something else in that field. Prevents overgrazing, and certain cows like certain things to eat, the sheep like different ones. And therefore, it's not going to over compact because each one eats different things and is going to make it so that it doesn't remove all the plants. By rotating the grazing, you actually promote growth of the pasture faster than what you would normally. It brings the grass back so that it grows faster. So there's a rate in here going from right here to here where it grows very, very rapidly. And then it gets to a certain rate and it stops growing. By keeping it in this range, in the almost vertical range area, it grows faster, and therefore you're going to get deeper roots, less soil lost. So a practice FRQ, could you describe 2 soil conservation strategies that could be used to prevent soil erosion in agricultural fields that are established on this landscape where there's hills?